in a shocking 1700s historical document of Black Americans. A German professor used the term Negro as a reference to black Jews both in Africa and in Portugal. The author also makes a clear distinction between the black Jews and black Moors. The Moors were largely a distinctly different mixture of black people, most of whom had converted to the Muslim faith. The author candidly points out that the black Jews were specifically targeted for the slave trade, and that the black Moors were intentionally avoided, and that the Negroes, also known as black Jews, were then sent to the Americas during the slave trade. Get your ebook and audiobook bundle today. Choose from the following 3 options. Option 1. Get free copies of the original 1700s documents only. Option 2. Get an easy-to-read edited ebook, plus free copies of the original 1700s document for a low price of $10. Option 3. Get an audiobook for easy listening, plus the easy-to-read edited ebook, and also free copies of the original 1700s document for a low bundle price of $15. Learn the real history they don't want you to know.
So I came across this website called Negroland.com, and this site collects data that has been made available by agencies such as the CIA, the IMF, the UN, USG, etc. They use all this information to report or forecast or predict where countries will stand in the future, in particular the year 2025. So the outcome predicted for the United States is rather alarming. This site has boldly predicted that the population of the United States, which stood at 327 million people in 2017, will drop dramatically to less than 100 million people by 2025. Now that's a stunning loss of 227 million people. So let me say that again. The outcome predicted for the United States is very alarming. This site has boldly predicted that the population of the United States, which stood at 327 million in 2017, will drop dramatically to less than 100 million people by 2025. What is it that they know? Now they're pretty emphatic on making their predictions. You can go to their website and see what they have to say, and they explain why they are making these predictions. And like I said, it's based upon information gathered from the CIA and other government agencies. So I'm looking at this and I said, well, I know I need to share this information. And one of the reasons I knew I needed to share, because it reminded me of a lesson that I taught a couple of years ago. And I'll make sure that I include the link in the description section of this video about the in that lesson we discussed the great American eclipse that went over the entire nation and what it could mean for this country. So we went back in time and we discussed the fall of the Assyrian Empire and the Ottoman Empire, which had similar eclipses. So we discussed how when this pattern happened to the Ottoman Empire, that 10 years later the Ottoman Empire had fallen. We also discussed that the U.S. not only had the same type of eclipse in 2017, but was due another one of the same type in 2024 coming from a whole nother direction. So these two eclipses together would end up making a big X across this nation. So make sure you go back and listen to that lesson. Now, according to our ancestors, this is not a good sign. Now, going back to the 2025 projections, the U.S., like I said, will suffer the most loss. It's 227 million people. Now, there are some other countries that suffer some major losses as well. Now, I'm gonna get this spreadsheet. I'm gonna make sure I include it, a link to it in the description section as well, and you can download it. And it has over, I think, 200 countries on that spreadsheet, and you can just look over it and do with it what you will. But I just included on this presentation just a few countries that has the most dramatic losses. If you can look at the first one there, China. China only has 21 million lost. And I say only has 21 million lost because they have a population right now of almost 1.4 billion people. So to lose 21 million is nothing to them. And so even if they lose that, they still got 1.4 billion people. India doesn't suffer any loss. As a matter of fact, their population is projected to increase by 60 some odd million people. So Russia doesn't take any dramatic losses. Japan drops 23 million. Mexico doesn't suffer any major loss. As a matter of fact, they get a slight gain. Italy it loses 18 million. France loses 27 million. Canada loses 9 million. South Korea 14 million. Germany loses 52 million, which is over half its population. Spain loses 21 million. And the United Kingdom loses about 51 million. So the European nations seem to take the biggest hit in second place to the United States. So I'll leave that link in the description section. You can download that Excel spreadsheet and take a look at that according to the projection. Now when we look at the projections from this site, we do notice one thing. We notice that the nations of Africa suffer very little during this predicted devastation. So why is that? Well, Africa just happens to be the continent where the last biblical wars will be fought. So everything's lining up with the way the scripture has it. So if the last biblical war is going to be fought in Africa, of course it can't be one of the first areas to be completely devastated. So let's look at the continent of Africa. And when you look at the world maps of today, the continent of Africa is made to look small or equal size to some of the other areas of the world. But when you look at Africa from a true perspective, you can see just how awful the manipulation really is. So let's look at this map of Africa, true Africa. And let's look at the sizes of true Africa. All right, so when you look at this map, of course, I'll leave this presentation for you to download so you can get a better look at it. But when you look at the area of the countries, the land areas, you can actually fit the United States, China, Europe, and several other nations, India, inside of Africa. Looking at the old map, the one we've been taught during school, these other nations are bigger than or as big as Africa. But when you really study that, you can see that all these nations fit inside of Africa. That is huge. Africa is huge. And so that's why all these countries now are fighting to get down to Africa, and that's why you know, the last wars will be fought there, and that's where a large majority of the chosen people are. So when we look at the continent of Africa, we also find out that it is essential to the return of the promised people to the homeland. So when you go to Ezekiel 20, and we look at scriptures 32 through 38, this is what he says. He says, "And that which cometh into your mind shall not be at all that ye say, we will be as the heathen, as the families of the countries to serve wood and stone. As I live, saith the Lord, surely with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with fury poured out will I rule over you." All right, so he's saying that a lot of bad things are going to happen, and it's because he's ordaining it. And watch what happens when he does that. He said, "And I will bring you out from the people, and will gather you out of the countries wherein you are scattered with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with fury poured out. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there I will plead with you face to face. Like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I plead with you, said the Lord God. And I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. And I will purge out from among you the rebels, and them that transgress against me. I will bring them forth out of the country where they sojourn, and they shall not enter into the land of Israel, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. So he's telling us he's bringing us back out of the countries that we're in with fury. It's not going to be because we just say, oh, I want to leave. This is going to be because he's creating an environment for us to leave. And so when he talks about he's going to bring us back into the wilderness of the people, you have to go back and look at where we were before. And if you see these dotted lines here, you'll see where we sojourned for 40 years. We just kept going around in a circle for 40 years. He would tell us when to pack the tents up and the tabernacle up, and we would follow the cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. And when he would stop and settle down and lower the cloud, we would stop and we would put down the camp, and we would stay there until he told us to get up, and we would move again. And so we just followed him around in this circle over and over and over again. Okay. So he's telling us that at some point he's going to, with fury, he's going to cause something to happen. He's going to bring us back out of the countries again. He's going to send us right back to Africa, North Africa, and we're going to be wandering around again while he pleads with us and gets our attention. And he's going to protect us during all of these things that are going to be going on. There's a lot of stuff that's going to happen in between that, but that's just kind of a summary of what he's going to do. But I'm just trying to show you why Africa is an important continent.
In a shocking 1700s historical document of Black Americans, a German professor used the term Negro as a reference to black Jews both in Africa and in Portugal. The author also makes a clear distinction between the black Jews and black Moors. The Moors were largely a distinctly different mixture of black people, most of whom had converted to the Muslim faith. The author candidly points out that the black Jews were specifically targeted for the slave trade, and that the black Moors were intentionally avoided, and that the Negroes, also known as black Jews, were then sent to the Americas during the slave trade. Get your ebook and audiobook bundle today. Choose from the following 3 options. Option 1. Get free copies of the original 1700s documents only. Option 2. Get an easy-to-read edited ebook, plus free copies of the original 1700s document for a low price of $10. Option 3. Get an audiobook for easy listening, plus the easy-to-read edited ebook, and also free copies of the original 1700s document for a low bundle price of $15. Learn the real history they don't want you to know.